I'm very concerned that the incentive structure online facilitates dark tetrad behavior. Now, there's more evidence too, right? Because here's another problem. 25% or thereabouts of online content is pornographic. So basically criminal, right? It's basically prostitution facilitated by electronic pimps. So that's not good. And then a tremendous amount of online activity is outright criminal, right? I mean, older people are just being scammed on an unbelievably constant basis. And so it might be that 50% of online activity is in the psychopathic, antisocial, and cluster B realm. It's very, very difficult to regulate. And my suspicions are is that spilling over in a really counterproductive manner into the actual flesh and blood world. And so, I'm curious about your thoughts about that, because one of the things that's odd about you on Twitter, in a good way, is that you are constantly drawing people's attention to the relationship between cluster B psychopathology and online and political behavior. And so, what do you think about that as a hypothesis with regard to the pathological incentive structure of the virtual world, right? Maybe it's a non-playable, degenerating game. Like it could be.
Well, I think in a lot of ways, that's exactly why, and I know you're familiar with the paper that I wrote on this, is social media is an incubator of all of this cluster B type of stuff, because on social media, you have this indirect, communicative, language-based amplification of all of these traits, whereas male aggression in the real world, it doesn't scale. You have an encounter, there's something said, somebody gets, punched in the face, and that's it. What you have is on social media, indirect aggression, and you have all of these traits and antagonism and histrionic, behavior that just basically gets amplified and emotionally resonates and balloons out. And it builds and builds and builds. And, one of the best examples of that is what we saw with Hamas. I mean, they filmed all their atrocities as they were going into Israel. And that was one of the most, interesting in a morbid way kind of aspects of that incursion. Was it was just filmed. They were basically, in fact, doing it for the lulz, regardless of whether you think on how much atrocities or what was the exact specific atrocities that were committed. They were filming them on GoPro for exactly that reason and to amplify that. And so, that is one way for a perfect example of how this is all spiraled out of control. And I will say for myself, others have written about the cluster B stuff in terms of political ideology and how that's played out before. The famous Loboszewski is one of them, and others. So, but I just see it so clearly because when you look at the traits and you look at what's happening online, it's a perfect incubator for all of these just to continue to amplify and amplify and amplify without any mechanism that limits it, and it just spills out. And then what happens is you have an event like October 7th, or you have an event like what you're seeing on these campus tent cities. All of that's mediated and amplified online, and then it gets played out with all this petulance and romper room behavior on campuses.